tusk is really quite something. Hello Devi in Vancouver. Interesting one from you about elephant eye colour, and you say they all have brown eyes. Devi, yes, as far as I know they do. It's the only colour I've ever seen them with. I haven't heard any records of them being other colour. That's a beautiful shot. Very nice. Eggsy, you get 20 points for that effort. Now, it's not the. You might see the aerials. You might see the aerials coming into the picture here. I don't want to start the engine though with him so close, unless we want to move away, because the engine does make a bit of a roar. That's pretty close. I'll just sit quietly, everybody, and make a noise. I don't think he's feeling aggressive. Doesn't look aggressive. He does look unspeakably large. Now I'm going to ask Eggsy here to just describe to us in one word what he felt as this behemoth elephant stinking of that sort of urine that they make during this must time came to within 2 meters of us. That's just over 6 feet. Eggsy, one word.
Yeah, I'm speechless.
Speechless. That was fantastic. Oh, it was an amazing experience. I couldn't even get a proper picture there, you know, everyone. He was too close. My camera wouldn't focus. It could have been the shaking of my hands, though. This is wonderful. We have a question all the way from Romania. Crad, you're in Romania, and you want to know about elephants' predators and how often they're hunted by other animals, and are they good at defending themselves? Crad, they are very good at defending themselves. They've got those tusks. They're in the herds. The herd structure means that the females will be extremely defensive of any youngsters, or in fact any animals that are attacked within the herd. But crad, they're not often hunted out here. It does happen from time to time that lions will hunt them, especially in drought conditions, but normally that happens in a place like Botswana, not here. I've got no records of an adult elephant being killed by lions in this area. It would only be lions, crad, that could kill a big elephant, or maybe a giant a giant clan of hyenas, but otherwise that would be all that could affect an elephant like this. Very nice question. Lovely to hear from you. Thank you. That's a wonderful sighting, everybody. And Sarah, speaking, I mean, that elephant obviously came very close to us, and you were obviously on the drive when Scott had that experience with the hole in the ear elephant. He has a big hole in his left ear, I think, and he came and he touched Scott's vehicle twice. And Sarah, you want to know if he's been seen recently. Sarah, he hasn't. He went off to the Manuleti and then seemed to disappear, so I don't know where he's gone, but he hasn't come down here for a while. It was a fascinating experience that we all had there with that elephant. He wasn't particularly nice to us. But at the same time, while he was, I mean, he wasn't overtly aggressive, but I mean, a curious elephant is a scary thing. I'm tempted to move slightly forward so that we can get behind the light a bit, but maybe we should just sit here. He's relaxed completely with us now, you know. Alright, let's go and quickly get an update from Jamie, and I'll move and see if we can't get a slightly better view of him.
Oh, I have just changed for now and abandoned our search for Shadow. Not abandoned. I have temporarily moved on from the Shadow. I've left both William, Aubrey and Herbert all searching for her, because while I was looking, I passed Tristan on the road, who said it was absolutely worth making our way across to Red Dam and having a look at what's happening here. And for those of you who missed out on the sunrise safari, it looks as though the hyenas, and it might be, I think it's the hyena clan of Elephant Plains, killed a buffalo in Red Dam, and they've been feeding off it, and now there's apparently a whole collection of vultures there as well. So let's go and have a look at that. We've just been called into the sighting, and we're heading through to there, and then we'll go straight back and carry on our search for Shadow. Thank you very much.
Thank you. How are you?
Good, and you?
I'm good, thanks.
Hi, guys.
Good, thanks.
Thanks very much. Cheers. That poor man, I don't know what he just said. I got so distracted by several things happening at once. While we make our way into the sighting, let's go back over to James and see how his very big grey creatures are.
It's going to be quiet again, everyone. We did move the car, and then he walked off to the side of us. He's now facing us, obviously. He's not giving any overt signs of discomfort or aggression, but he is full of testosterone, so we don't want to challenge him. He's about 2.5 meters from us. That's 7 feet. You can see the VR rig. And you can also possibly see the urine now dripping from him. This is amazing. And the smell of it is quite pungent.
Lot of vultures. Definitely worth changing our route for, ever so slightly. And one hyena that refuses to give up the kill. This is absolutely incredible to witness. There must be about 50 vultures around us, and at the same time they haven't managed to get in to have the meal that they are so eagerly anticipating. It is the gathering of the scavengers of this area. Lots and lots of white-backed vultures, a couple of hooded vultures as well with their slightly thinner beaks, and a couple of incredibly round-bellied hyenas. This is an absolutely stunning sighting. Really, truly spectacular. And there you have one of the potential reasons why hyenas will drag their kills into a dam like this. It's something that I've never thought of before. We spoke about it earlier, about the fact that it might hide the scent of the kill from other scavengers, and at the same time they might like the taste of the soggy meat. However, have a look at this, because I think this is quite a good approach to keeping the vultures at bay. They are quite comfortable with getting their feathers wet, but there's nowhere for them to land. There's no way. They don't want to become bogged down, so they'll wash themselves in the water, but they don't want to go wading in. There's no way that they can perch and scavenge off that carcass. And thus the hyenas have the perfect, almost the equivalent of locking a fridge. Nothing can get through to them. So most of these are white-backed vultures that you're seeing in front of you, which is the most common of the vulture species that we get out here. Common is a word we need to use carefully, though, because most of our vultures, just like most of our big birds of prey, are relatively endangered in their own way. So whilst they might not be critical just yet, they are definitely an animal species that needs to be protected, and whilst they may not be as pretty as looking as lion cubs, or perhaps a sort of striking batalier, they do serve a very, very important function. Look how full some of their crops are, so they have managed to eat. You'll see every now and again there's the bulging parts of them in front, just below their necks, that I think might be filled with food, so perhaps they did manage to snack. All of you taking some amazing screenshots, and thank you for that. It is a truly spectacular scene. And seeing these scavengers all relatively comfortable with each other. And as I said, these hyenas were probably responsible for killing this buffalo. That seems to be the case. They didn't steal it from anybody else. It was their kill. And the hyenas of the Elephant Plain clans. Oh, vulture fight! I'm big and intimidating, and hopping around like a vulture out of the Jungle Book. Look at that! Gallop towards the water's edge. Don't they just remind you of those animated ones from the original Jungle Book version? The ones that I think were meant to look like the Beatles or something similar. And while our hyena strides off to think about coming for more food, Mitzi, no, unlike the wild dogs, hyenas do not eat meat and then regurgitate it for their cubs. Though they do actually have a much longer lactation period than almost any other predator out here, which is one of the theories for the reasons of the females being larger than the males and they're having better access to food. What they will do is once the cubs get to an age where they will start feeding on meat, then they will drag bits of the carcass back to the den site. Only if they are higher ranking females, then they will drag food back. If they're a lower ranking female, then they will try and suckle their cubs for as long as possible before eventually having to risk taking them through to a kill site like this or a place that they have scavenged. But they'll try and wait until the cubs are at least 6-8 months old, when they are boisterous and strong enough to survive any potential other predators that the carcass might have attracted. Oh, panic! Running away from the hyena. They've obviously been chased around a few times. Now, as they are dashing around, our beard has noticed that they don't seem to be terribly worried about the vultures attacking them. And our beard, you wondered why that might be. Well, it's not because the vultures wouldn't attack them, because the hyenas wouldn't attack them, because they might. They definitely might. That being said, they only really do it when the vultures get a little bit too close to them. So the vultures know that as long as they keep their distance... How's it? How are you? Good, thank you. As long as they keep their distance, then they are not in any danger. It's only really lions that have been known to take a serious swipe at a vulture. There's very rare cases of a vulture underestimating a hyena and getting caught out. Oh, dinner and a drink on this beautiful afternoon. And it's not just our You're getting nice and comfortable there with your full belly. This is awesome. It's not just the vultures and the hyenas, actually. There are other birds of prey that do scavenge, and one of them is here right now as well. Definitely more attractive than our bald-headed vultures are. Looks like a pale morph, a tawny eagle to me, has also joined in the party, hoping perhaps to pick up some scraps. Not a bird that could compete with the other vultures in terms of strength or size, but it does know that as long as it plays its cards right, it might be in for a couple of tidbits of meat. It's an absolutely beautiful scene. Really, truly incredible. And then all of them keeping their feathers neat and groomed, making sure that they haven't got any scraps of dirt stuck to them. They are actually quite fastidious creatures, vultures. They will go and rinse themselves off after they've been feeding, and of course their bald heads are a way of, well, not completely bald, but the reduced feathers on their head is because it's a way of reducing the amount of basically just muck that clings to their head when they do feed, when they do manage to get their heads into a carcass. And they will, as I said, go and wash themselves off. Oh, where are we going with this? Oh, gross. It's definitely not for those of you who are particularly sensitive of stomach. The meat's taken on, vulture shove at the same time. The meat has taken on a pale, very unpleasant pink-looking colour, as it does when it's soaked in water. I've seen some incredible sightings like this, where the hyena have managed to drag something into a dam. They'll often be seen sticking their heads right under to get to the meat that they're after. I wonder if those vultures are not wondering how on earth they might be able to get a snack. What's the collective noun for vultures again? Is it a wake? A kettle, that's it. A kettle of vultures, which is utterly absurd. I feel as though a wake is a better description. Oh! This is very, very common in these mass vulture sightings. And what you'll find is that once one male has taken his turn, the next will come and join. So this is really very common to see. And it's quite a noisy experience. Because I've seen this before, and I've actually seen 5 males mate with a female in the space of under 5 minutes in a very similar fashion. Look at them, they seem to be lining up. That's incredible. This is such a special vulture sighting. I saw this once with a dead giraffe, where the vultures basically filled their time mating with each other. I suppose. Social gathering. The hyenas are definitely boss in this situation. No vulture wants to run the risk of falling victim to those powerful jaws. What have they found there? Is that the stomach contents? It looks like it might be. They're definitely all after something. So the hyenas, like all of the other predators, will pull the stomach contents out, because the stomach contents behind that is where all of the most nutritious parts of the kill sit. So the liver, the heart, the lungs, all of the internal organs are the most nutritious parts. So even hyenas will pull out the stomach contents of their prey. And they're generally quite wasteful when they do that, which means that the vultures for now are actually trying to take advantage of whatever stomach lining they can find in that pile Oh, coming back again. And once again the sea of vultures will part before the striding hyena. The other one's gone straight to sleep. I mean, just sniff at one of the others. Now this is something... Oh, hello. That was playful. That was sheer playfulness and bonding between the two. That's an invitation to play. Oh, how very interesting. Coming for a drink, I imagine. I don't think this buffalo will get lucky this afternoon, but this will be very interesting to see the way that this plays out. Like all water-dependent animals, they come through about once a day to drink. You definitely, Mr. Buffalo, you definitely don't want to come to Red Dam. The sight that shall meet your eyes is a gruesome one indeed. A fallen comrade in the water. He's gonna do it though. Watching carefully, he probably at this point doesn't realize exactly what's going on. The hyenas are not a threat at this point. They're not displaying predatory behavior, and they're not a threat to a bull of this size. The buffalo that they've killed seems to be relatively young. So for now, he is not too worried, and actually a little bit curious as to what might be happening here. Wow, look at that belly. It's huge. So full of buffalo. There's a bit of a vulture skirmish happening. What did they find? Did they find a scrap of meat? Because now they're all racing across there. I think they must have. I think there must be a piece. They must have found something there. A scrap perhaps that none of them had realized before. This is an absolutely amazing sighting, and now all of the vultures have raced forward to get at whatever it is, and because they are so busy fighting over it, the one that actually originally found it hasn't managed to gobble all that much down. It's been... There you go, there's just a scrap of meat there. Oh no, did it go in the water by any chance? I don't know where to look. Oh, now the hyena wants to come and investigate what's going on. What you guys doing? What have you found? Why wasn't I aware of this? I want some. Oh, vultures discovering that a dam wall is not all that easy to fly up and around when you're that big and bulky. This is so amazing. I just don't know where to look in this sighting. Hyena, I think, has arrived too late to grab at whatever particular scraps these vultures managed to find. I don't know what on earth they got. Racing off ahead. Here comes the buffalo bull. It's all happening here at Red Dam. Isn't it really, truly amazing? And I'm not sure if you can hear it, but every now and again one of the... Oh! Just goes to show, look. Watch the way that this buffalo bull descends towards Red Dam. They're surprisingly nimble animals, although I think this particular bull might have picked really the wrong path to go. This looks like a bad idea. Yep, I think he agrees with me. As does his friend, who is watching on. Absolutely incredible. The buffalo bull has now trapped himself. Thanks. Cheers, guys. Just saying goodbye to some of the other people on the back of the vehicle. And the hyenas doing a quick gentle sniff as part of their normal social bonding. And James Richard was wondering on the subject of, well, hyenas and vultures. He was saying that we have seen vultures eat lion scat before. Would they do the same to hyena scat? Yes, absolutely, and in fact more regularly so. Because it provides particularly for nesting females, it provides a very important source of calcium, much like the tortoises do as well. So vultures absolutely will eat hyena scat, make use of whatever it is they can find from it. What I was talking about earlier before I got distracted, our buffalo's decided to go a different route. There goes the other one. Running along. Let's reposition ever so slightly to watch this so we've got everything in view. Because the buffalo still haven't chosen the easiest descent. Can you hear the sound of the wings as they flap overhead like that? It's absolutely incredible. These vultures are such enormous birds. And there we go. Our buffalo, seemingly unperturbed by the gruesome scene in front of him, has decided this is the perfect spot for an afternoon drink, whilst the hyena continues to feast upon another buffalo, and the vultures wait patiently in the wings. And yes, absolutely, that's a really good point from Madeline that I hadn't thought about, which was whether or not the terrapins will eat the submerged part of the buffalo. And yes, they will. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't swim around there and pick up the scraps. They would have to try and make sure that they avoided the hyena's attention. But that being said, even a hyena might have misgivings about tackling a terrapin with their foul-smelling secretions. But that's a very, very good point. I can't believe I didn't even think about that. And now, the vultures have gathered around a pile of elephant dung. They're searching for termites, presumably. So there you go. There's behavior that you don't see every day, or indeed ever. An absolutely incredible sighting. One of the things I do want to do is just hop onto the Game Drive channel. We're not going to leave here just yet, obviously, but I do want to just hop onto the Game Drive channel and chat to Herbert. So for now, let's go across to James for a quick update.
She'll be lucky to get hold of Herbert, everybody. I think he's kicking back with the cold one at this stage. He's walked that place flat and come up with no leopard, I'm afraid. I think that's the update anyway, and Taxon and Aubrey said there are some zebras. They are walking through the woodland. That is stating the completely obvious, of course, but they are quite some distance from us. We left our elephant bull, by the way, going to find a friend. We saw a friend of his off towards the east, and they went into some thick bush next to the Mluati drainage line, and so we didn't follow him. Then, off to the right-hand side, the pelage is glowing in the golden setting sunlight. There's some impalas. Sorry, not the right-hand side, Zander. No wonder you look confused. Sorry, Eggsy. We have some impalas there on the left, not the right. Very nice. Look how beautiful the colours are. Interesting, Bethany. You have been watching for a while, I think, and you said any of the mammals change colour with the seasons. Now, as far as I understand it, no, they don't. Well, they certainly don't out here. There might be a slight lightening of the coat during the winter time when it gets a bit thicker, I think the winter pelage tends to be slightly lighter, but it's very slight. Then, I mean, I'm assuming you're talking about things like Arctic foxes, for example, which have different colours during the snowy months and different colours when there isn't any snow. Now, the temperature and the landscape doesn't change sufficiently here, I don't think, for it to warrant such changes in camouflage. Very nice question, that. Thank you, Bethany. And they're eating some of that really good, I think, dry Cambritum forage that I read about earlier today. Right, let's just pop onto the treehouse dam wall, which is not far from here. See if we come up with anything there. It's just over here. Now, I don't know if anyone's told you this, everybody, but there's a very special surprise coming this next week. And I'm going to give you the surprise now. Well, I'm not going to give it to you, I'm going to tell you about it. This next week we're doing a whole lot of broadcasts to Australian schools. Now, of course, we have a favourite Australian here at Safari Live. Well, he's our only Australian, but he's still our favourite Australian. And that, of course, is Mr. H.T. Hayden Turner. And Hayden will be coming in for the course of the next week. And he's going to be talking to the kids in Australia, and he'll be sort of slotting into the drive rotation with the rest of us. And I think it's going to be marvellous to have him here. Nice fresh perspective on things. He hasn't been here for some time now, so it'll be great to have him back. And so that's something really to look forward to next week. And I think we're going to be talking to over 100 schools associated with the Taronga Zoo in Sydney, and just check out our blog page. Tomorrow there'll be a blog describing exactly how it's all going to work. But essentially, as far as I'm aware, the only thing that will change is the morning drive will shift half an hour earlier, so we'll start at 6 and go to 9, and the afternoon will remain exactly the same. So it'll be 6 to 9 and 3 to 6, which has a sort of symmetry about it that I quite like. So just half an hour earlier, but check out the blog and we will remind you during the course of the weekend before all of that stuff starts. That's just for the week next week. Then we'll be back to normal. We will hopefully have 3 feeds for all of those drives, so bushwalk and 2 drives. HT on one of the cars and then one of the rest of us on the vehicle or on foot. And I believe you're all very excited about that. Well, that's good. So you should be, I suppose. We're all quite excited too. Right, we're going to ease up onto the cut line here, head off towards where the shadow tracks were, not holding out great hope. But while we do that, Jamie is still with the hyena and the beefalo.
My plan is definitely to head back to where the last tracks of shadow were, but I cannot bring myself to leave the scene just yet. It's just so incredibly fascinating watching the dynamics at play, watching the different ways that the vultures interact with each other, interact with the hyenas, dodge them. And then a very good point that was raised by VM, which was just how clumsy vultures truly are in flight. That they're adapted to soaring high in the air. Oh, it was a bit of a skirmish there, resulting in a displaced vulture looking for another dead tree to settle in. You see that very clumsy flapping, which is why I mentioned the sound of their wings as they move through the air. It's a deep whoosh, 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 whoosh sound, particularly when they fly overhead. They're heavy birds. They're heavy and they're not very agile, and compared to our light, soaring heron that has decided to bypass his spot and perhaps search for... No, here he comes. He's just doing a much more graceful landing. Plop. Perfect. 10 out of 10. 9 out of 10. He put 1 foot out of place for that particular landing, compared to the vultures that kind of have the dung beetle approach to landing, which is just, well, if I aim roughly in the right place and absorb the impact with my feet and run a little bit, I should be fine. It's the crash landing approach. And as I said, dung beetles do it as well. They haven't quite got the landing mechanism figured out, and neither do vultures. Adapted, they are one of the birds that can fly the highest of all of the bird species. They're Ruppel's vulture, or the Ruppel's griffin, depending on whether or not you know that name, is recorded at flying at a height of 32,000 feet, roughly the height that a commercial jetliner will fly at. And that's what they're adapted for. Long periods spent in the air with those broad wingspans. When I say broad wingspans, you're probably looking at about 2 meters, wider than my arm span, for the white-backed vultures, that catch the thermals and hold the bird up without them even having to try. Oh, so aggressive with each other sometimes. Unexpectedly so. Sometimes they're perfectly content to shuffle around each other, and then other times they're... I don't know, there's something about them that provokes each other. And they run around for a bit. No, that's it. No more action there. Patient. Hyena continues unconcerned, munching at the buffalo. But what I was going to carry on and say about the vultures was the fact that in South Africa there is this belief in some of the local communities that a vulture can bring you the power to see into the future, because there's a lack of understanding about the way in which vultures find their food and the way that they use their eyesight. There goes the hooded vulture in the middle of your screen going towards the water. The idea is that they predict where carcasses are going to be, because nobody quite, or there's a lack of understanding about the way that their eyesight works and how good they are at spotting things from their extreme height up in the air. And so this has eventually led to the idea that the vultures will, if they can see into the future, well, obviously, if you make a potion of their brains or sleep with a head under your pillow, therefore you will be able to see into the future. Which, for desperate people and unscrupulous traditional medicinal practitioners, I use that term very loosely, but they can take advantage of desperate poor people, particularly with the establishment of the national lottery. People desperately trying to get hold of these vulture trophies or potions to try and be able to predict the lottery numbers. And so what happens is that carcasses get poisoned. So a carcass will be put out, poisoned, a cow or whatever it happens to be, cow, and that can kill 200 vultures in one go. And those that survive, because the poison that they use is fat stored, those that survive, as soon as they get a little bit hungry, maybe go for a bit too long without a meal, immediately that poison takes hold once again as they start to metabolize their fat stores. That's something that is really important to raise awareness about, is the plight of the vulture. As I said, they're not attractive as lion or leopard cubs, but they do serve an incredibly important function out here. Although I must say this area is so smelly. It's such a different smell to the one I'm used to around carcasses.
It smells like wet hide.
Wet hide, yes, that's
Salted wet hide.
salted wet hide is what VM, of course, has always been far better at describing smells than myself. He is the originator of the description of an elephant bull in must being like rotten oros, which is a juice concentrate. Sour oros, sorry, sour oros. Get it right, Jamie. Sour oros. So VM definitely comes up with the better descriptions. The last smell I tried to describe was that of a water buck, and I said it smelled like a wet animal, which, you know, really helps. Very descriptive. But VM definitely has a talent for it, so he's right. Salted wet hide is the smell that we're getting. I love the tail flicks from the hyena every now and again. And aviary. It really does smell like a dirty bird aviary to me as well. It was a beautiful flick. A circle of ripples from around the hyena. And Sarah, who is 18 years old, it's wonderful to have you as always. Sarah, from what I understand, but I can't answer all of your questions because I don't know exactly what happened here, but I'll do my utmost to answer them. As far as I understand, this is the part of the Elephant Plains clan, and this morning there were at least 14 hyena in this area. So yes, as far as I know, from what I've heard about the Elephant Plains clan, I've never seen them all together. I've seen 17 in one go, but never any more than that. But they have a reputation as being very large in number and having about 30 odd hyenas as a part of that clan. But that I cannot confirm, having never actually seen them properly all together. What you got there? Hyenas. Perfect. All lying up. These guys seem to have been feeding all night. I think they did kill this buffalo. I think my guess as to what happened here is that they chased this hyena, they chased the buffalo into the dam, surrounded it and wore it down until it was exhausted, and then managed to catch it in the water. There's not much water here, and hyena have never been afraid of getting their feet wet. So I imagine that they waded in and they can. Of course, hyena do hunt. In certain areas, they hunt up to 90% of their prey, depending upon where you are. Less so here, because we've got such a high concentration of lions, so they don't need to. But in certain areas, they hunt almost predominantly for their food source. As to the age of the buffalo, I think it's a young one. I think they probably cornered it. They probably hacked at the heels of the buffalo until they separated it and they cornered it here. I think it's young, but I honestly can't confirm that. It looks smallish to me, but then there's not really that much left on it for me to be able to confirm that. I don't think it was a fully grown buffalo bull. Let's put it that way. I think it might have been a sub-adult buffalo. But there I couldn't begin to tell you whether or not that was actually the case. Dragging it even further into the dam. There we go. There's a brief glimpse of its leg. It's a young bull. I mean, sorry, not a young bull, a young buffalo. I don't know if it was a male or a female, but it is young. Because although the rest of the leg is swollen from being soaked in the water, that hoof, to me, doesn't look like the size of a full-grown buffalo bull, or even a fully grown adult buffalo cow. Ew. It's such a weird smell. It just wafted over us in a fresh wave as the hyena repositioned the carcass. Yeah, I hope you're all feeling very prepared for dinner this evening. There goes the tawny eagle. Oh. Decided it's not worth the wait. A plethora of scavengers at Red Dam at the moment. The unfortunate thing, there we've got an active predator in the form of a grey heron plucking at the fish. Oh, I think it just got something. What did it get? What is that? That's a piece of buffalo meat. It is. It's a piece of the buffalo carcass that's floated away. Oh, now it's going to have to... And it dropped... Did it drop it or did the eagle get it? I'm so confused. I think the eagle caused it to drop it. My goodness, it's chaos at Red Dam. I don't think the eagle got it, but I think that the heron got such a fright that it dropped it in the water. I think that's why that eagle flew off in the first place. It's targeting the grey heron. Now the poor grey heron has lost its piece of meat and the water's so murky it doesn't know where it is. So the eagle's decided that if the vultures... It's not going to get past the vultures or the hyenas. It'll pick on somebody smaller. This is incredible. Heron. I feel quite sorry for it. All it did was pick up a scrap of meat. Is it going to find it again? Looks like it's given up, watching the eagle instead. I think it knows that if it gets that big chunk of meat, it can't swallow it whole, and as soon as it puts it in its mouth, that eagle's going to come back towards it and try and steal it. And the interesting thing is that tawnies are one of the first birds of prey to scavenge off leopard kills. Because they fly slightly lower than vultures, they've got a better chance of spotting them underneath the leaves of the trees that the leopards have stashed them in. The same goes for battaliers. And of course, what would a sighting be without a fork-tailed drongo fluttering about? Definitely wouldn't be a Sabi Sand sighting. And as I said, the tawny eagle and the battaliers are often actually responsible for leopards losing their kills to hyenas because they knock them out of the trees when they go to scavenge. I'm going to stretch the sighting as long as possible until we lose light. For now, let's go over to James, find out what his plans are and where he is now.
Look at that, everyone. Sorry to tear you away from the hyena, but from something pretty grim to something absolutely stunning. Isn't that nice? I think that is just so beautiful. And I am so now tempted, of course, to take many photographs of it and send them to my mother, who says I only take pictures of the sun. Hashtag. I think that's just too stunning for words. I'm not moving 1 inch until it's gone. Jamie's allowed to stay there for a bit longer. I mean, that truly is pretty spectacular, is it not? Oh. And our beard, you say, magnificent? Magnificent indeed it is. I'm now taking a rank average photograph of it. Very nice. Now, with any luck, Shadow will walk. Well, I mean, if she had any manners, what she'd do is climb straight into that tree and lay herself upon a branch silhouetted against the setting sun. We'll just get a little bit closer in there. The sun has now gone. I still don't really want to move, to be honest, because that picture's just rather too pretty. I can hear some zebras alarm calling, but I think they're probably talking to each other. They've been alarm calling at each other just about all day long. There we go. We'll just take you a little bit close to the mountains there. It's also a very good idea to stop and listen around this time of the day. Just listening. I don't know. I don't think those zebra were alarm calling at anything other than each other. Yeah, it was the hardy-dars, the other thing that I heard. But we'll move round there into the clearings, just not too far from here, and have a look. Isn't that just too pretty for words? Are you still speechless, Eggs?
Mm-hmm.
He is. He just said, uh-huh, which I think in Cape Town speak means yes. But it might not. It's difficult to say. I'm just going to ask Kirsten how much time Jamie still has at that sighting. Because if she's going to have to move on... Okay, well, let's go across to her. If she was going to move on, I would have moved on too, so that we could have... But and because she is going to be there, we're going to go straight back across to her, and I'll wait here a little bit longer.
I think our time is indeed running out because I don't want to spotlight the vultures. They are daytime birds. Whilst it would be fine with just the hyenas here, with the vultures it does mean that we can't sit with lights on. But the action is slowly calming down. We've got one courageous vulture, perhaps sensing the end of the day is upon him, has decided to strike out into the dam. No, just going to have a drink. No, too deep, too deep. And in the meantime, our hyena is still taking his pet buffalo carcass for a swim in the dam, munching away on whatever it can get its teeth on. I did have a very brief view of the head, well, proper view of the head with the horns. It is definitely a young buffalo, or it was. It is no longer a young buffalo, it is a deceased buffalo, but it was a young buffalo that this hyena killed, and pulling further and further into the center of the dam. And our intrepid vulture is still wading around, trying to see if perhaps there's a spot that isn't quite so deep in the dam itself, pretending to have a drink, or perhaps just having a drink on the side, maybe even looking for floating scraps of slightly rotten meat to feed on. It was a good decision to come here, though. It's an absolutely amazing sighting. Oh my goodness, it's still waiting. I think they've decided... Oh, no. I think that they're thinking that perhaps this will be their last opportunity, because they won't spend the evening on the ground. They will go up and roost in the dead trees around the area. And that's because one of the big reasons is that they're clumsy birds during the day, taking off and landing. At night they become even more ineffective, and it becomes even more dangerous for them. So they have to go and roost, which is why I think some of the other vultures, while our hyena drags the carcass even further into the middle of the dam, some of our vultures thought about wading into the middle. Look at that. Very gruesome. Not for the faint of heart, the weak of stomach. And our vultures, I think, have given it up as a slightly bad job. Most of them are now taking to the air. We've got a few determined stragglers going to see it out to the end. Well, more than a few, quite a few determined stragglers.
Heron's got something.
Which one's got one? Oh, the heron's got something. Bravo, heron! Well done.
It's a frog.
Is it a frog? It is a frog. Well, it might not have been the scrap of meat, but it's got a frog. Which it is really struggling with. A serious mouthful. I think the frog hasn't given up too easily. Here we go, and it's gone. Just like that. Our heron might not have got his scrap of meat after all, but he did get something to eat for his dinner. In this case, some poor hapless frog that's probably been dodging the attention of everything around him at Red Dam, perhaps regretting being at Red Dam in the first place. And slowly but surely, the vultures are doing their run-up, or casual jog to the water's edge. Oh, was that necessary? I think that this is a waiting game and a risk that the vultures took, and it hasn't been one that's going to be successful. They might have picked up a few scraps of meat. Most of them seem to be coming to the same conclusion. But Lynn, if the hyenas were to leave now, you want to know whether or not the vultures would come and drag the carcass out of the dam towards the water's edge. I don't think so. What they might try and do is settle on it. That's something I have seen, is vultures trying to land on a carcass in water to try and feed off it. But it would be very, very difficult, and probably some of them would end up quite bedraggled, as a whole host of vultures would descend, and the others, those that were sitting on the carcass, wouldn't be able to keep their footing. They wouldn't have the problem-solving ability, I don't think. I've never seen it in action, at least. I don't think they'd have the problem-solving ability to work out that they'd need to pull it to the shore. They'd have to work together. One wouldn't be strong enough to do that. And that's not something that their avian brains are capable of working out. Some very disgruntled looking vultures, though. They've probably spent the whole day here hoping that perhaps there'll be a chance. But as I said, giving up. Sort of. Half-heartedly giving up. I feel quite sorry for them. I think they've very patiently waited all day, and it just hasn't paid off. And tomorrow, if we were to return here first thing in the morning, we would find a host of vultures, or a kettle, which is the correct pronunciation, the correct collective noun. I feel as though a wake of vultures to me is the best collective noun. A wake of vultures will be awaiting us at Red Dam before the day gets hot enough for them to take wing and start to use the thermals to look for more food. There's another grey heron coming in. Sorry, distraction. Huh. Nearly landed on our heron's head. Our heron's got something else. It's got its scrap of meat. And now the heron wants it. That's all happening here at Red Dam. Huh. Sorry, Mr. Heron. You arrived that little bit too late, and I think your buddy, or mate, I'm not quite sure which way around it went, will have been able... Oh no, look at that! There's lots of scraps of buffalo meat floating about in Red Dam, which is kind of gross when you think about it. Definitely not done the best for the water quality. Oh, that's a huge piece. How on earth are you going to manage that? Lucky for you, that tawny eagle has given it up and gone away. Ah, sorry, Dina. My mistake. Apparently it's a wake of vultures only when they are feeding. Fair enough. I guess that makes sense. And a venue from Rebecca in Final Control is the collective noun for vultures waiting, and a kettle is the collective noun for a group of vultures flying. I'm glad we've got so many descriptive collective nouns for the different state of vulture, whatever state they happen to be in. That's very interesting. Thank you for that. I don't know, I still feel they look so morbid when they're all clustered round. It really does. I still feel that wake is a better description. Might not be the official term unless they're feeding. But I actually feel it's even more appropriate when they're waiting. They're enormous birds. They really are. You don't get a sense of perspective until they fly overhead. Shame. They're getting desperate. They know they're running out of light. No such luck. Though our vultures have been unsuccessful, and our heron is not actually proving to be that successful. Sorry, I'm trying to watch several things out of the corner of my eye. Vim's doing a fantastic job of keeping track of the Red Dam action. It just hasn't quite managed that giant piece of meat that's in its beak. And then there were 4 now, or about to be 4. 5, yes. Counting. That went well. About to be 4 left. Contemplating. I think trying to figure out, because as I said, it's quite an energy expensive process for a vulture to take off and fly. What they often like to do is work out exactly where it is they're going to go first before disappearing. And I think that's what our friend here is doing. And at the same time making sure that it doesn't leave at the critical moment where success was just around the corner and the kill was about to be moved to the side of the dam, which isn't going to happen. Unfortunately. There he goes. Awesome Vim. And then there were 4. 4 remaining stragglers. Oh, almost. Oh, is it going to be 3? No. The most determined of the group. Shame. And our hyena still having an amazing time. And a lovely point raised by our beard, which is that, isn't it amazing how many species are benefiting or have benefited from the demise of one buffalo? Absolutely. It's always hard for us to watch when an animal dies, but it's important to remember that it never ever goes to waste. Although I feel as though these vultures feel particularly shortchanged, and then there were two determined stragglers. Some zebra fighting off in the distance. Oh, the third has joined. Making their way away from the bowl of the dam and getting ready to head off. One more determined vulture. Sorry, buddy. Not today. One last-ditch effort, having been abandoned by his fellows. You can see the desperation in his body language. Cannot believe it's wasted a whole day, or it cannot believe it's wasted a whole day, waiting for an opportunity to feed that never came. I think that's it, buddy. It's time for you to go. You're not going to get lucky here. Everybody's left you. The Lonely Vulture. Sounds like the title of a wonderful book. While I wait to see whether or not our Lonely Vulture takes wing, let's go to James for an update.
Hello, everybody. Nothing to report. Did do a little bit of a drive down the double M break. What's it called? The triple M break. The road between us and Arathusa. And I found nothing there, I'm afraid. So, I don't know where Shadow's gone. The wild dogs were found, by the way. Remember the ones we were chasing around today, or trying to see if we could chase around? They crossed the boundary, obviously went to Sydney's Dam sometime during the day. That's why we originally went to Sydney's Dam this morning. And they were found by Taxon. They were found by Taxon on Buffelshoek. And they went off into the Manileti, which is to the north of us. So that's what's happened there. Then we came around here hoping to find little Shadsy baby, but unfortunately Shadsy baby appears to have, well, given us the slip, as it were. Anyway, we'll see what other creatures of the night we can find. Let me retrieve my spotlight, which Zander was very concerned about earlier. Eggsy, sorry. Was very concerned because I had the spotlight there at the start of the drive, and he said, "Are you not worried about it?" I said, "No, I wasn't particularly worried about it." He says, "But if we find wild dogs, well, it could fall." Good point. Pity we didn't find any wild dogs. Hey, Eggsy? Yes. Poor old Eggsy's had about 75 nicknames in his 3 days of work. How long have you been here, Eggsy? Since Sunday. Since Sunday? Did you arrive the same day I did? Oh, I didn't realise that. I must have been suffering still from the after effects of my holiday. I'm sure I only noticed you on Monday. That doesn't say much for me, I must say. Well, now it's Friday, of course, the weekend. Eggsy, as you know, the weekends here are vastly different from the normal days. And the other thing that might or might not be around this particular area of the reserve is a serval. And the serval that Jamie had hunting was the one that lives around here. So maybe I'll be lucky there. To be honest, most likely not, but it's possible. Where this leopard is, I think is rather interesting. She's being rather shadowy, to be honest. For those of you who are new viewers, Shadow, a 9-year-old female leopard. Hello, Sean. Oh, you've asked something of a controversial question here, one that my opinion will differ vastly from my colleagues. You say, why do we not name the animals in English over the radio? Well, some of us do. I do. I refuse to... hang on. Parlours, sorry about that. Most of the guides around here speak a kind of mixed Shangaan Zulu English, and it is, to my mind, a horrendous agglomeration of language that basically speaks to the laziness of people bothering to learn local languages. So I will only speak English on the radio, or I will speak Shangaan, but the other funny thing, game drive speak, I refuse to do. But the reason it's done like that is supposedly so that your guests don't hear what's been seen on the radio. Now, this has always struck me as utterly illogical, mainly because people who come to these reserves are not idiots. They wouldn't be here otherwise. They're not cheap to come to, which means that, you know, if you've got a certain level of wealth, often you've got a certain level of education. And secondly, they're out of the way. They're not obvious places to go. It's not like going to Ibiza in Spain. It's or to, you know, a sort of whirlwind tour of Europe that takes in the Leaning Tower of Pisa, Venice, and the Eiffel Tower in 2 days. I mean, you've got to know something about life to come here. Anyway, so to sit on a car and sort of say things like, "I have just found an ingwe," which means I have just found a leopard, just strikes me as a bit odd, because you've got educated people who are here to experience something. So my entire training was around the fact that we didn't ever do that. You always spoke English, you always told the guests what you were going to do, what you were going to try and find, and you'd include them in the tracking experience. So if somebody called in a lion on the radio, and they heard the radio, sometimes you try and keep it low so that it doesn't intrude on the drive. If it was close by, then you'd go and you'd show them. If it wasn't close by, then you'd say to them, "I'm sorry, it's too far away, we'll try again tomorrow." Never ever once had a guest complain about that. Never once felt pressurized by a guest into going to something that I couldn't get to. So, yeah, I think it's just crept in. I think it's the throwover, to be honest, a throwback to the 80s that I really don't think is necessary. So, that's a long-winded sort of nighttime, not rant so much, but explanation as to why some guides use the Shangaan and or Zulu terms. Sometimes it's Shangaan, sometimes it's Zulu. It's all just a bit of a mix. Sometimes not even a word, like the word they use for wild dogs, madash. Nobody can tell me where that comes from. It's not a Zulu word, it's not a Shangaan word. So what it is, who knows? And it was likewise, we didn't like to, I've always been slightly off, like a major surprise, if you know what I mean. And it's different, I guess it's different doing what we do here, because it's quite nice to have a surprise every now and then. But for me, it's almost like saying, I'm trying to keep you ignorant if you've got guests on the back of your vehicle. I'd far rather say, listen, you know, somebody else has found something, or found some lions, let's go and have a look. I just found it was much more authentic. That's just for my personality, though. So, in a long-winded way, that's how my guiding evolved. I am possibly, in fact, I'm definitely in a vast minority, so that's just how it is with me. Okay, let's go across to Jamie the antelope. Really sounds like an unbelievable sighting you've had there with her, so I'll get her to gush a little bit more about its magnificence with you now.
It was a truly magnificent sighting, it really was. To see that interaction on so many different levels is one of the really special moments that you get out here, and it's not often that you get to enjoy a sighting like that, where you've got so many elements at play. And of course, always a pleasure to see the spotted creatures as well, since our clan seem to have deserted us and moved north to Manuleti, or at least moved their den site to Manuleti. They're still around, their tracks come backwards and forwards, but it's always a pleasure to see spotted hyenas at the same time. Now, speaking of spotted creatures, I've returned for the last few moments of the sunset safari to search for Shadow, in the vain hope that perhaps she might pop out of the bush and give you a last-minute glimpse of her before the end of the sunset safari, which she did for us very kindly yesterday morning. Right at the end of the sunrise safari, I was hoping we might have a similar experience. Either way though, rest assured that I will be back to this area to search for her at first thing, the crack of dawn, tomorrow morning on the sunrise safari. Now, just to finish off with a question that I know came through from Michael, and I got distracted completely and I never answered it, so I hope, Michael, that you're still watching. I know that it doesn't have to do, or that we're not with vultures anymore, but Michael wants to know about bearded vultures and how far south they occur. And the reason I've come back to that is I meant to talk about it, and then I kept getting distracted by what was going on. So the bearded vultures, or as they're also known here, the lammergeier, is a wonderful species of bird, and we actually have one of the southernmost occurring populations in the world. So it's actually quite widely distributed, I should say, right through Africa and up towards Europe. However, we've got a really tiny and very, very endangered, isolated population in a place called the Drakensberg Mountains. Now, we look out across the Drakensberg Mountains every time we look to the sunset, but in this particular instance, the population is a little bit further, because of course the Drakensberg stretch throughout South Africa. In this case, the population is a bit further into a place called KwaZulu-Natal, so further to the south and to the west of where we are now. But that is the southernmost population that occurs in South Africa, and I think it's actually the southernmost population in the world. So there you go, just an answer to Michael's question. I'm sorry I got distracted, but I hope that he is still watching. Shadow! Kitty kitty! There's something over there, but I don't think it is a leopard. But there is something over there, and we're going to go and figure out what it is quickly. It's the right area and the right direction that she was heading in. Oh, no. Sorry. There's far too many eyes. Nope, it's a herd of impala. As soon as I saw more than one eye reflection, then I realized that was definitely not what we were going for. Well, there we go. In that case, we'll go back in this direction, since as far as we know, she didn't cross out of here. Perhaps she will be more successful with that herd of impala and manage to catch one while we're asleep, safely tucked away in our beds tonight. Another beautiful winter's day draws to a close, and I imagine when we go back to Red Dam in the morning that we will not have much in the way remaining in terms of that buffalo kill. Sorry about that, I thought I saw something. But it was my imagination. And so, while we go home, accompanied to imagined shapes in the darkness, or perhaps some real ones as well, it's time for us to say goodbye at the end of the sunset safari. Now, a very big thank you to Vian for his fantastic camera work and keeping up with what was an incredible sighting, as well as to Kirsty and Rebecca in final control, and most importantly, a big and vast thank you, an all-encompassing thank you, an expression of gratitude to those of you watching across the world. I hope you had a marvelous sunset safari, and we will catch up with you tomorrow for the sunrise safari, hopefully with Shadow in tow. Bye-bye everybody, and enjoy your day.
Well, here we are everybody, the gentle smoke of... No, let me try that again. Well, here we are everybody, the gentle smell of wood smoke filling our nostrils as we make our way towards a delicious meal, no doubt, cooked by the inimitable Amanda. It has been a very marvellous drive indeed. Hello, Gracie again. Thank you. 2 questions from you today. It's great. I'm so pleased to have had 2 questions from you. You want to know if Eggsy played in the circus like Brian. If you looked at him, you'd say he must still be part of the circus, Gracie, because he comes from Cape Town, and in Cape Town they dress like clowns. And so, yes, he looks like he played in the circus, but no, he didn't actually. Only Brian played in the circus, Gracie. Sometimes I feel like we're all playing in the circus. Yes, Gracie, it's very, very good to hear from you again, so you just keep talking to us. Just a minute left, everybody, of the Eggsy and James circus show. He's being very good sport about the names we've given him, I must say. Thankfully he's about the same size as me, so he's not a physically intimidating human being. Alright everyone, that's going to be it from us today. Big thank you to all of you for coming on Drive, especially our new viewers. Thank you, and just to remind you, please tell us where you're from. We had someone from Romania today. What a joy that was. Thank you, Khanda, Eggsy, for all your efforts today. Big thanks to the final control of Kirsten and Rebecca, and of course to Jamie and Brian. We will see you tomorrow at 5 o'clock. No, we won't, 6:30. Bye-bye.